The castle of Carcassonne, Site de Carcassonne, is one of the largest and most impressive medieval castles in Europe, located in the south of France, in the Languedoc region. Its massive walls, towers, and historic fortifications have endured centuries, preserving not only unique architecture but also a rich and dramatic history filled with conquests, sieges, and royal intrigues. This story will take you on a journey through the ages, from its early establishment to the present day, when the castle of Carcassonne became an integral part of France's cultural heritage.
The history of Carcassonne begins long before its famous medieval period. The area where the castle stands was inhabited as early as the pre-Roman era. The first settlers were the Celts, who started building fortified settlements long before the Roman conquerors arrived in the region. With the arrival of the Romans in the 1st century BC, Carcassonne became an important stronghold for defense against barbarian tribes. The Romans built the first defensive walls, thus laying the foundation for the future castle. From that point on, the fortress played a significant role in defending the region. Even then, Carcassonne was becoming not just a fortification but a symbol of power and strength, towering over the plains and mountain passes. But true glory came to Carcassonne in the Middle Ages when the fortress became a citadel, closely tied to the history of Catalonia and France. Its walls witnessed endless battles for control of the Languedoc and Roussillon regions, which bordered Spanish territories.
For centuries, Carcassonne was one of the key military targets in southern France. It played a particularly important role during the Albigensian Crusade 1209 to 1229, when the Catholic Church and the French crown launched a campaign against the Albigensians, supporters of Catholicism, a religious movement widespread in Languedoc. From the mid-12th century, Carcassonne was the center of the Trinqueville County. At that time, the city was ruled by the powerful Trinqueville family, who sympathized with the friars and provided them with protection. When Pope Innocent III declared a crusade against the heretics, Carcassonne naturally became one of the main targets. In 1209, the Crusader army, led by Simon de Montfort, approached the walls of Carcassonne. The besieged castle found itself in a dire situation. Although the fortress was nearly impregnable due to its double line of defensive walls, a lack of food and water made a long siege impossible. Shortly after the siege began, Raymond Roger Trinqueville, the Count of Carcassonne, decided to negotiate with the Crusaders. However, he was captured and soon died under mysterious circumstances, presumably from dysentery. With the fall of Carcassonne, control of the city passed to Simon de Montfort. The castle and its walls were fortified and became a symbol of the Catholic Church's victory over heresy.
Wars, Carcassonne became part of the French kingdom. The kings of France, recognizing the strategic importance of the castle, decided to continue its fortification. The castle was becoming not only a defensive structure, but also the administrative center of the region. French monarchs, starting with Louis IX and Philip IV the Fair, invested significant funds into modernizing the castle. New walls, moats, and towers were built, and old structures were reinforced. Throughout the 13th and 14th centuries, Carcassonne was an important defensive point, protecting France from potential Spanish invasions. The fortress played a crucial role during the 100 Years' War between France and England 1337 to 1453. Despite constant threats from the English and their allies, Carcassonne remained an impregnable stronghold. Its walls withstood numerous sieges, and thanks to its well-planned fortifications, the castle remained one of the most protected in Europe.
In the 16th century, Carcassonne's significance as a defensive structure began to wane. Wars with Spain gradually diminished, and with the signing of the Treaty of the Pyrenees in 1659, which ended the Franco-Spanish War, Carcassonne lost its strategic importance. The town and its castle fell into decay, and some buildings and walls started to crumble. However, in the 19th century, interest in Carcassonne was revived thanks to the French architect and restorer Viollet Le-Duc. He undertook extensive restoration work on the castle, restoring it to its former glory. The restoration of the castle, completed in 1853, was one of the first efforts in Europe to preserve medieval architecture in its original form. Thanks to Viollet Le-Duc's efforts, Carcassonne was saved from destruction and became a symbol of France's cultural heritage.
Carcassonne is not just a castle, it is a place surrounded by many myths and legends. One of the most famous is the legend of Lady Carcass, which gave the city its name. According to legend, during one of the sieges of Carcassonne, supposedly by the Arabs, the city was surrounded by enemy troops, and its inhabitants were running out of food. However, the cunning lady of the castle, Lady Carcass, devised a plan to trick the enemies. She ordered the last pig to be stuffed with grain and thrown over the city wall. The enemy soldiers, seeing this, believed that the city still had plenty of food if they could afford to throw away grain-filled pigs. As a result, the siege was lifted and the city was saved. As the enemy troops were leaving, the city's bells rang in celebration of victory, and one of the inhabitants exclaimed, "Carcassonne, Carcass rings," which became the basis for the city's name.
Today, Carcassonne is not only an important historical monument, but also a popular tourist destination. In 1997, the castle and its fortifications were included in the UNESCO World Heritage List. Thousands of tourists visit this remarkable site every year to see its mighty walls, walk through its ancient streets, and immerse themselves in the medieval atmosphere. The castle of Carcassonne impresses with its scale. Its double system of walls, stretching for about 3 kilometers, includes 52 towers, each unique in its architecture. Inside the fortress, churches, palaces, and residential buildings have been preserved, creating a complete picture of a medieval city. Walking through the streets of the castle, one can feel the breath of centuries and hear the echo of past battles and political intrigues. The fortress, which has survived so many wars and sieges, still stands, towering over the plains, a symbol not only of strength but also of resilience in the face of time.
The castle of Carcassonne is more than just a medieval fortress. It is a living witness to history, which for millennia has been an essential part of the military and political life of southern France. Its walls have seen the rise and fall of dynasties, battles for faith and power, and a cultural revival. Today, Carcassonne remains one of the greatest monuments of medieval Europe, preserving the memory of the great era of knights and kings. The history of Carcassonne is the history of human struggle, perseverance, and art. Thanks to its restoration and inclusion in cultural heritage, the castle's future looks as solid as its stone walls, which have withstood all the tests of time.